Black Hole 2000 is the largest roller coaster at Seoul Land in South Korea. This park is best known for its appearance in Season 2's Squid Game, but they have 5 different roller coasters as well. Black Hole 2000 looks like your standard Arrow or Vekoma looper, but it was actually built by Senyo Kogyo. Is this a pleasant ride, or is it utter trash? Find out in this review. Senyo Kogyo has fabricated nearly 70 different roller coasters, most of which went to Japanese and Korean theme parks. One of their largest coasters is the subject of this video, Black Hole 2000. This ride opened in 1990, and it has arguably been Seoul Land's signature attraction ever since. And I certainly like this ride's presentation. It features vibrant orange track that travels above and around the midway. Then multiple elements pass directly above the back entrance, which certainly builds anticipation for your visit. And if you visit at night like I did, the trains have a really cool multicolored lighting package on the sides. The queue and station are plain though, which isn't too surprising for a pure amusement park such as this. I was only at this park during the last 2 hours of the day. Even though it was a weekend, Black Hole 2000 was just a 1 train wait. I imagine that crowds may be a bit heavier during the daytime, but I have never seen a trip report from this park mentioning lengthy wait times like the other parks in Seoul. One note if you do arrive at night, many rides here close early. Black Hole 2000 specifically closed 25 minutes before the official park closing time. This can vary wildly by ride and day though. For example, I missed Columbia Double Loop because that ride closed 4 hours before the park did. So if there's a ride you care about, try to contact them in advance if you can. Black Hole 2000 has 2 trains. During my visit, it was only using one, which I believe is the norm at this park, and most in South Korea for that matter. The train seats a max of 24 riders, as there are 6 cars with 2 rows of 2. Seating is on a first-come basis, but if the seat you want has already been taken, staff members are happy to let you wait an extra cycle. I had a slight preference for the front row. Not only do you have the unobstructed view, but there are a few airtime moments you don't get elsewhere. But I think the most important thing is to avoid the very back of any car. At first glance, the trains look very similar to those in Arrow loopers, but they are a much, much tighter fit. That is particularly true in the back of each car. I am just 5'9", and I could barely get into these rows. I had to cross my legs just to fit. Even then, my knees were firmly squished against the seat back in front of me, which is not the least bit comfortable. Riders are then secured by over-the-shoulder restraints. These have some extra foam padding on them, which is a common sight at the Asian parks. If you are tall enough that your head is above the restraint like me, you'll have a more comfortable ride experience. Once secure, you have a small dip out of the station. You then turn left and ascend the lift hill. This lift stands 114 feet, or 35 meters tall. That is decently tall for a looping coaster, but the train takes what seems like an eternity to reach the top. Okay, maybe not that long, but it takes 1 minute and 10 seconds, which is a really long time for any coaster. For reference, that is almost as long as Steel Dragon 2000 takes to get to the top of its lift, and that ride is nearly 3 times taller. The chain lift has that rhythmic tugging found on an old school Arrow looper, so your body shifts back and forth as you go up. But the anti-rollback clickety-clack is not nearly as loud. Once at the top, you have a small dip. You now have a grand view overlooking the park, with mountains in the distance. It is beautiful. This leads to a 180-degree leftward turn, and then the action begins. Senyo Kogyo has made a lot of jet coasters through the years, and this drop feels exactly like something from one of those rides. It is basically a long, shallow ramp, so forget about any airtime. It just gets you up to speed. On that note, this coaster is a max speed of 53 miles per hour, or 85 kilometers per hour. But I don't actually know where that occurs. The first drop does not come close to ground level, and a majority of the layout is high in the air. After that initial plunge, there's a banked rightward turn. It was quite mild, but more importantly would answer the question if the ride was smooth or not. And it's okay in that department for the most part. I am tall enough that my head was positioned above the restraint, meaning I did not experience any headbanging. However, if you're on the shorter side, I imagine you'll hit your head a few times on the directional changes, since the train will jostle a bit through them, meaning you could have a more painful experience than me. No matter your height, everyone will feel the jolt in the valley after the first turn though. It very noticeably slams you into your seat. The other valleys were not like that. You then rise upwards and have a banked drop to the right. This offers some light laterals throughout the train. Now it is time for the ride's two inversions, back-to-back corkscrews. Their placement is a bit weird, both in terms of how early they occur in the layout and how elevated they are. These offer solid pull in the back, but they are rather shaky in all rows. The second is particularly bad, so you want to brace yourself in these. This leads to a slow rightward turn. This lines you up for the back half of the ride, which has a layout more resembling an out-and-back wood coaster. There's another shallow drop, narrowly ducking underneath a tree branch. You then have a mild rightward turn and have another shallow drop. This time, you get really close to ground level, so you feel a lot of speed here. You then jump into the far turnaround. The apex is super sharp, so you actually get an okay pop of airtime here if you're in the front. The following turn is minimally banked, so it offers some weak laterals as well throughout the train. This is probably the best element on the ride in my opinion. The drop off is another shallow one though. Then the train cruises over a bunny hill. This offers some weightlessness throughout the train, but is not strong enough to actually lift you out of your seat. You then jump upwards into an L-shaped turnaround. This is visually cool since it's underneath several trees, and also offers a small pop of airtime if you're in the front. You then have one last turn left into the brakes, and brace yourself. The train slams to a very hard stop. This is particularly problematic if you're in one of the back cars. Remember, your knees are basically against the seat back, and they will take the full impact. It is not the least bit comfortable. You then roll back into the station, ending the 3,196 foot, or 974 meter long coaster. That has a really good overall length for a looping coaster. I already touched on the smoothness, but what about the pacing? This ride is inconsistent in that department. There are some dead spots between the elevated elements and the lack of forces, but there are points where the train is moving at a considerable clip at least. So what would I rate Black Hole 2000? I would give this coaster a 3 out of 10. This is a below average looping coaster. The two inversions are not all that great. Corkscrews are not my favorite inversion out there anyway, and the two here are rather rough. Then the rest of the layout is not too wild. It is mostly mild turns and shallow drops. There are a few airtime moments in front, but those are few and far between. Then this ride can be uncomfortable as well. I do not have any headbanging due to my height, but I saw shorter guests complaining about this. And if you're taller, make sure to avoid the back row of a car unless you enjoy being packed in tighter than a Spirit Airlines flight. This was the best coaster I experienced in my visit to Seoul Land, but it was also the only operating thrill coaster I could ride, so it kinda took that title by default. Those are my thoughts on Black Hole 2000, the large looper at Seoul Land. What are your thoughts on this coaster? Have you ridden it? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you consider subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.